Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Anyone who supports the SNP and who works needs to question why they're supporting the SNP. Figures revealed today show that Scots are earning far less now than they ever have after 16 years of nationalist rule. Average wages are falling in line with inflation. Real terms, wages are behind where they should be. This is nearly 17 years, in fact, of SNP rule. And if anything is plainly obvious to the average working man in the street, is that this is the main reason the SNP isn't working. Your wages are falling as a direct result of their policies. It's the worst. It doesn't occur in the rest of the UK, only in Scotland. But it's only Scotland that have the SNP. Let's have a look, see the numbers, and see if voting for the SNP is costing you more than you think. Here goes. Now, of course, before we get into the story, it must be pointed out that most people in Scotland don't vote for the SNP. However, most people are still suffering because of them. It seems that there is some very strange goings on when a minority party, a party that doesn't have a majority at Parliament, can destroy economies so badly that everybody in society suffers at every single level. It is perhaps time the SNP was shown the door and never allowed to return. Anyway, we'll read this and go through it. It's very quick, it's not a big piece, but I think it's interesting, and I think people who work especially need to be aware of it. And more so if they are the sad people who vote for the SNP, thinking they're getting better, and yet strangely not. They're impoverishing themselves through the ballot box. It's a very weird way to behave. Anyway, the SNP should be embarrassed as Scots earn less now after 16 years of nationalist rule. Scotland's Scottish Labour Shadow Secretary of State for Scotland, blimey already, what a title, Ian Murray blasted both the Scottish and UK governments for allowing wages to fall in the last 16 years. The SNP should be embarrassed, he said, after new analysis revealed that Scots are earning less money now than they were in 2017 after 16 years of nationalist rule. And in terms of gross median earnings, workers in Scotland are losing out on about £12 a month. £144, near on £150 a year. Think about what that would mean at Christmas. I mean, that gets you Christmas dinner and a few drinkies bought for nothing, effectively, you know. Scottish Labour claimed that these new statistics showed that people across the country are worse off under the SNP executive, and that this will change if they're kicked out of office. And of course, not soon enough. And not just for this, but for all the other sleazery, scummery, snidiness, sleekitness, and all the other things that begin with S that are slithering and shitty. I mean, this is what the SNP is. You have to wonder what the S stands for. We all know what the P stands for, but you sometimes will have to wonder what the S stands for. New analysis by the House of Commons showed that real wages... Jonathan Ross would have a problem with that, wouldn't he? Real wages rose until 2010, but now the average Scots earns less in real terms than they did in 2007. Shadow Secretary of State for Scotland, Ian Murray, mentioned this in his speech at the Gordon Brown think tank Our Scottish Futures one-day conference in Edinburgh. Why did I see Edinburgh and say Birmingham? What's going on? I have not been drinking. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe I should start. Anyway, the Better Jobs, Better Skills, Better Pay conference included the former Prime Minister as a speaker, alongside the likes of Liz McAvoy and Lord Sainsbury. The gross median weekly earnings in Scotland for full-time employees, taking account of inflation, remain lower than they were in 2007. In other words, you're all getting poorer because you keep voting for the SNP. Stop it. Stop doing it. They are destructive. And of course, with higher taxation as well in Scotland, again, as the result of the SNP, it's not surprising that it's going to get worse. They keep having to put the taxes up to pay for their own incompetence. And all the rubbish they're spending, of course, on independence, which is never going to happen. Mr Murray pointed out that during the last Labour government, north of the border, real wages grew by 25%. He's expected to say under the last Labour government, real wages, that is, earnings, taking into account for inflation and other costs, grew enormously. A 27% increase in wages, on average from $563 a week to $713 a week in weekly earnings. That was transformative for millions of families. And my friends, that's what happens when you have somebody with the leadership of Gordon Brown in charge of economic policy. Don't make me laugh. This is the man who announced to the world he was going to sell off all our gold so that the price dropped, and then sold off all our gold at a really low rate, and then watched in horror as the price of gold went straight back up again. All because gobshite on legs couldn't see the future. Very hard when you've only got one eye, and that eye's always on the clock. And so he fucked us over with the gold sale, so I don't believe him anything he says when it comes to economic policy. What a tit. Anyway, sadly, Scotland and the UK have been without economic leadership ever since. Even before. There's no way he can call himself an economic leader, old golden bollocks. Anyway, in fact, he said, according to analysis I've published today, real wages in Scotland are lower today than they were when Labour left office. I don't doubt that that's right, though. I've got to be honest, I don't doubt he's right. But let's not build him up to be the greatest economist the world has ever seen. He hit out at the fact that Scots are poorer at the end of 2023 than they were in 2007, and said that this should embarrass every government politician in Edinburgh and London, and is a total failure of economic policy. They're the ones, the SNP, that are putting the excess taxes on. They're the ones that are not bringing in investment. And when you bring in investment, what happens is jobs become rarer, and to attract them, rates and wages go up. That isn't happening because the SNP are anti-business. They're massively anti-business, and so businesses don't really want to mix with them, and that's what's stopping. And of course, with the increase in taxation, many businesses are moving south of the border where the tax is lower. Again, it's just reasonably sensible things to do. Any businessman will tell you, cut costs. And if one of the costs you can cut is tax, you do it. Doesn't have to be a genius to work this out, do you? Anyway, Scottish Labour are quickly becoming real contenders to defeat the SNP at both the next general election and Holyrood election in 2026, with some pollsters putting them ahead of the Nationalists already. We did that video yesterday. And they're highlighting Scottish Government's failings to do so. Well, they fail after fail after fail, so no surprise, is it? Mr Murray concluded, Scots will ask themselves, after 13 years of the Tories and 16 years of the SNP, if they feel better off. And the answer for many people will be no. In England, I'll blame the Tories. But in Scotland, I think the Tories, yes, to some extent. But the bigger one, you've got to say it's a 60-40 in Scotland, is SNP. And then they're doing a bit of pro-Labour politicking, which we're not interested in. And there's no way anyone can describe him as the greatest economist ever. You know, we're talking about the gold and all that. What an arse. Don't trust them. Anyway, there we go. I'm going to round off there. Come up, we'll finish the video. As I say, whilst I appreciate that it may well be factually true and that the SNP is costing people money, let's not build up Gordon Brown as some kind of economic guru. The guy was inept beyond a joke. Don't forget it was Labour who left office with the words, there's no money left. So, yeah, can't trust Labour on the economy. On the other hand, anything has got to be better than the SNP. Anything. Literally anything. But he's right. If you are an SNP voter and you're working, you're doing yourself out of money. Anyway, I shall finish there. Thank you very much for watching. We'll round this video off. I've got loads more to do, but whether I do them because time's ticking on and I've got jobs. But we'll see how many more we can get through. Anyway, until then, thank you very much for watching. Stay safe, stay well, and I will speak to you later. Bye.